Yep, this is a 100% completely normal Gibson Les Paul, right? No. Welcome back, Troglodytes, to your daily dose of guitar information, the Trogly's Guitar Show. We've got ourselves a little bit of an interesting piece tonight. It was just recently listed on Reverb by the Dusty Spirit Instrument Relocator for $7,500. Let's see what we can find out. At first glance, this appears to be some sort of a 70s Les Paul custom. Just by looking at these tuners, I'm fairly confident it would be somewhere in that 73 to 75-ish range. And if you're curious, hey, why is our binding so yellowed and then our logos are so crisp, pure and white? That's because the lacquer has actually flaked off over top of our inlays, because it's not the inlays and binding that ages, it's the clear coat that gets sprayed over top of that. And you can tell this thing has been played in some smoky bars, because look right here on our truss rod cover. It's yellow, also has a bunch of tar on it. And then furthermore, it looks like we're rocking the original bone nut, so that tells us Kalamazoo production. But actually taking a second look at that truss rod cover, that's the style that they start to transition into around the time Nashville starts. So the odds of this actually being a mid-75 are looking pretty good just from one photo. But now the most important shot. What has happened to this thing? Just as a quick refresher, here's a normal Les Paul custom. We've got 4 knobs over here, bridge and tailpiece set up, a single little swoopity whoop, and a toggle switch up here. The one we're looking at tonight has a double cutaway, and it looks fairly good. But since they chopped away our toggle switch location, it naturally had to be moved, and they chose to put it right here, right below our pick guard. And I've seen a few of these double cut conversions before, but this one is actually fairly clean. If you didn't know it wasn't factory and then later refinished to make sure everything looks right, I could see a lot of people thinking this thing is legit. However, there's one area right here that tells you it has been modified. And it's right here. You can see where they joined on the new binding. It didn't quite 100% match up. And just because you have that on your guitar, that doesn't necessarily mean that it was modified. Sometimes they actually left the factory looking a little bit whopper-jawed. This was a factory second Black Beauty custom that we reviewed once from approximately the same era. And it had a very similar thing going on, stock from the factory. It's one of those things you might not necessarily notice it right away, but once you do, it's like, oh yeah, sure enough, there it is. But in this case, we know it has been modified, and that is a great telltale sign of that. However, looking over here, if you look closely in the reflections, I think we can see our pancake body seam line going on. But then as far as the pickups, they look so fresh and new. I would want to see the backside of those to see if they're still original, because it looks like maybe the bridge has been updated. Because at first I was like, okay, ABR1 bridge lines up with what I was saying. However, if you look really close there, we might actually have a stud. It's possible that's a replaced bone nut up top, and then this has been converted from a Nashville style bridge. But let us keep continuing on here, see if we can find anything else. All right. So it is the waffle backs like I was thinking. We zoom in really close, we can still see the volute. This headstock does look overly round back here, so most likely the entire guitar was refinished at the same time, but I'm not seeing a serial number. If it's there, maybe it's just hard to see, or if it was actually a 75, it could be one of the decal ones, and they lost that during the process. Otherwise, I would assume we have a 3-piece mahogany neck, and then, oh my, what is this? That's a lot more screws than you normally see on a backplate. A whole 9 of them. But wait until you see what's under the hood. Look how professionally routed this is. It's gorgeous. I'm more so used to seeing hack jobs, and especially not good solder work on modified guitars. So what exactly is the story here? Because if this was all it was, some mid-70s Les Paul custom that's been hacked up by just anybody, I probably wouldn't have made this episode. Now we can read the full title. It was Strings and Things Memphis who did this back in the day. And that's really important because of this guy, Ace Frehley. He used to have this beautiful, I believe, Les Paul Deluxe that was routed for the humbuckers that people loved seeing him play. But one day, he took that guitar to Strings and Things, and they did this. The ever so famous double cutaway modification. and other people wanted their guitars to look like that. So they found out who did the work, and then they would commission it through it. Apparently, Strings and Things did an additional 6 of these or so in 1976 and 77. The story behind the particular one we're looking at is it was done for Bar K's, but they don't have any 100% confirmation on that. They were a Memphis rhythm and blues soul funk band. That's at least one possibility. Doing a little bit of digging, looks like I found one of the white ones that they also did. And I gotta remember, just because they were doing the modifications at that particular point in time, I think they were just picking up used guitars that people were sending into them. Like this one actually still has the toggle switch on the upper bout. That's kind of cool. And whoa, swept comfort heel with the binding still. That's really cool. I've got to say, I'm really digging this white one even more so. They even gave it this strange matching headstock, which you definitely don't see from that era too often. Pretty cool. But whatever you're thinking, just know these are modified guitars. They did not come from Gibson this way, but Strings and Things is famous for other custom orders. That's responsible for being one of the shops that helped start the whole reissue craze. So perhaps this would make sense for a big Ace Frehley fan who wants something that was modified around the similar time frame as his. Because look at it, refinished black, move the toggle switch in the same spot, double cutaway. It's just a fancier version of his Deluxe. But one of the workers at Strings and Things from there has indeed confirmed this to be one of them. Although I'd be curious if they have like a serial number log, or is that a, yeah, that looks like my work type of thing. I suppose if you only did so many of them, it'd be pretty easy to spot your work or not, because who's not going to remember a 9-screw backplate? But he's asking $7,500 on that one if you're interested in making him an offer, and it comes with one of those nice Norland era blue cases. But as we move on in our episode tonight, we need to thank our sponsor, Sweetwater. As a long-term sponsor of my show, I'm sure you're familiar that they sell guitars, studio and recording equipment, band and orchestra, microphones, etc. Everything here on their front page. But did you know they do cameras now too? They're having a creator sale right now, up to 50% off. So feel free to browse their website on that. But just to tie into tonight's episode, I thought, what other double cutaways do these guys sell? So I just did a basic search, no brand, double cutaway. Looks like we got some guitar cases and, okay, good old specials. The Epiphones, we've reviewed that. But hey, I never thought about the Gretsch as being another symmetrical double cutaway guitar at a fairly decent price. I mean, it's not quite Les Paul, it's semi-hollow territory. But Sweetwater's great about taking photos from all kinds of different angles. So if you're looking for something in particular, like this time it's a white finished guitar. That doesn't really help us find cool wood grain, but at least we can see the individual fretboards. As well as say if you're looking for a special serial number or a weight that jives with your back the best. Looks like most of these are just a little over 7 pounds. And I guess since we're on the topic of double cutaways, Sweetwater does do modifications. Like if you buy one of these guitars, you can send it directly to their repair and restoration team. I don't know if they would do a double cutaway for you, but I know that they can do the plec process, change a pickup out to something else. If you check out this episode, we had worked together to overhaul my first big super proper Epiphone into the craziest thing you've ever seen. I've got another one on my channel you might like, titled My First 50s Gibson Les Paul is a little bit different. A viewer of the show had brought this in. It was his own personal modified 1954 Gibson Les Paul. Now they ABR1'd it, did the whole double cutaway. That's got a whole plethora of history in and of itself. Go ahead and check that out. Maybe not the best double cutaway job, but it'll certainly satiate your appetite for weird, unique, and a little bit of swept heel. But hey, say you're a stickler for originality. Do you even have the options stock from Gibson at any point in its history to have a double cutaway Les Paul? Actually, yes, very briefly, in the mid-80s, part of the XPL series, this is the XPL 400 model. Likely due to Frehley playing one, they produced a double cutaway Les Paul. It's got the carved top, and sometimes there'll be solid finishes with an HSS setup, oftentimes equipped with Kahlers and individual pickup selections to get around the whole, oh, we don't have a toggle switch location anymore. But being part of the XPL series, that means you also get the Explorer headstock. So I guess it depends on your definition of a Les Paul. If you have to have the regular headstock. No, not that I'm aware of. Although if you don't need the fancy looks and carved maple top, the KZ2 might tickle your fancy. But don't fear if a regular burst finish with just 2 humbuckers and a figured top is more your style. Those did exist in that series too. You can even find them with the Kahler. I've been waiting for the very right looking one without a Kahler to do my documentation of one of these. Until then, there's the Aldo Nova model, which is just a single cutaway. Some other droopy swoopy double cut models to consider. a 1965 Melody Maker. These things are relatively affordable. You're talking the 1500-ish price range. It's got a familiar cutaway to it, a little bit more Florentine-like, but I can attest, those things are just like vintage SGs, just way cheaper. You just might consider upgrading your pickups. But again, you'll have to deal with a smaller headstock. And I know people will bring up things like the double cutaway Les Paul Standard. Yes, but no. This is more so DC Junior style cutaways. I'm talking completely symmetrical shapes. On these things, that horn is way taller, just like a regular SG. The same thing is true for the Longhorn model, so I think I've said what I've wanted to say for tonight. I hope you guys enjoyed the double cutaway Les Paul fun, and we'll catch you tomorrow on the next one. Take care.